Change was born.
Oh, I do, Jerry. Good morning. Welcome to the morning meeting. You caught us mid-anecdote. Talking about meeting Sarah Palin for the first time at the Alaska State Fair in Palmer, Alaska, which is like the equivalent of Rockville, Maryland. And I mean that in a totally positive way. Good morning, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to the morning meeting. This is the program based on the Network News Division's morning meetings, where we all gather and treat everybody like you're in our various bureaus around the country and around the world. We run through the news of the day book, and then we take your questions, comments, concerns, recommendations for theme songs. Whatever's on your mind is on our mind. Well, all with the ethos of peace, love, and understanding, the presumption of grace for all. And I recognize the gentleman from Rhode Island.
Well, it is a big day here in Rhode Island, and I'm glad you are appropriately dressed, Dan. I'm wearing my patriotic shirt. Mark wearing his Japanese shirt today. It is Victory Over Japan Day, VJ Day here in Rhode Island. So if any of the essential services that you're looking for in the state of Rhode Island in Providence Plantations was on your agenda, please move them until Tuesday.
So is Victory Over Japan Day a state holiday in Rhode Island?
Yes, technically, I think it's now officially called Victory Day. We just celebrate victories in general because it was offensive to celebrate our victory after a country bombed us. So that offended some folks. So now we just celebrate victories in general. You can choose the victory that you want to celebrate.
Some of America, the victory of Quisp over Quake, for instance, is resonant for Rhode Islanders. Some of the best sushi in America available in Providence. So we've come a long way. And you can get calamari prepared Rhode Island style in Kyoto.
Just to be clear, calamari is the official appetizer in Rhode Island.
I can see that.
Yeah, well, it was a byproduct. They kept getting it caught in the nets, and they said, "Why don't we actually do something with this?" And voila, you're welcome.
How do you pronounce banana blank? How do you pronounce that? The thing that comes with the Rhode Island style. How do you pronounce that word?
Peppers.
Peppers. Banana peppers. Thank you for joining. If you'd like to be in on the conversation and you're here on the two-way platform, please raise your hand. Watching on X or YouTube, incredible how widely disregarded I am, because occasionally I'll go back and I'll review through AI the chat and do an analysis. Last Friday's morning meeting YouTube chat, 75% smack. 75% smack. Let's try to get it down to 0 today. If you want to write in the chat, just don't put smack in there. Just put in peace, love, and understanding. All right. Very limited schedule today. It's August. Maybe not a surprise. Vice President is in the UK still, as far as I know. The President, one event on his schedule, 10 a.m. press conference in the briefing room. The Sean Spicer, is it named after you, Sean? Who's it named after? James A. Brady still?
James Brady.
James A. Brady, yeah. So not Sean yet, but the President likes to rename things. So maybe today there'll be
I actually like this. This could be...
Yeah. Anyway,
he doesn't like naming them after other people. It'd be the briefing room.
By the way, did anyone know JD Vance was going to England until he showed up?
Yeah, that's been out there.
It was out there. Anyway, President's going to have a press conference to talk about some sort of law enforcement action in D.C. D.C. could use more help on the streets. I think the mayor may be taking the wrong posture. Truth Social all weekend about this, and there's various reports, National Guard, FBI, maybe even federalizing the DC police force, which under home rule he can do for 48 hours. In any event, we'll see what he says. It will happen right after we go off the air. So we'll be doing a special West Coast update of no, just kidding. Anyway, you'll watch it yourself at 10. Congress is still out. And then on the Ukraine front, we still don't know where in Alaska the president's meeting, which I find weird. We'll talk about that in a second. The EU foreign policy chief, Mr. Kaja Kallas, is convening a snap virtual meeting of EU foreign ministers to talk about where Europe stands on all this. Sean, I want to start with what I consider to be bizarre, and it's just a footnote, but let's get out of the way. How could we not know where the meeting is? Like, aren't there people on the ground, like, prepping?
Yeah, I think the problem,
I mean, is it possible they haven't chosen where it's going to be?
Yeah, I mean, there's only so many places I think you can possibly have it. My guess is it ends up at the Air Force Base. I mean, just because I think you've got facilities, it's obviously...
Is that in Fairbanks? Where's the Air Force Base? There is a base in... that base,
yeah.
the base they refuel at. And where is... I don't even know. Where is that? Is that outside Anchorage?
Alaska.
Yeah, where is it? Somebody look. Where is that? Where's the Air Force Base?
You would have to think, Mark, it is at a military base, because if they were like taking over a hotel, there'd be
Yeah.
local tweets
Yeah.
and like, you know,
Yeah.
whatever.
But-
the Secret Service is there.
But don't you find it odd they haven't said it's going to be at the base?
No, I don't, because there's a difference between what they are locked in. It's in Anchorage, is what I'm being told in the chat. I do glance.
Well, every indication is, but is the base in Anchorage? Because every indication is in Anchorage, because like people's Airbnbs are being rented
No,
by the Secret
Elmendorf
Service.
again, I'm reading Matt in the chat, but
Yeah.
I'm saying I thought it was either in or around there anyway. The point is, and this is someone else is putting in there's obviously security issues. There's a lot of sensitivities. My guess is that before they do that, you think about it, if you land at the base, you could literally set up in a hangar
Yeah.
a meeting room and keep it so that they never leave the footprint. Set up two separate little encampments. But my guess is that you would not want Russians on the ground for longer than they have to be in a very confined space. So you land, park the plane, move into a hangar, have the meeting, have sort of one-off rooms, but they're not going to stay for longer than a few hours.
Yeah.
And so my guess is you do it right off the tarmac.
So
All right,
you think it's only a few hours and then everyone leaves? That's wild.
Yeah. Dan, just real quick for both of you, Dan first. Will Zelensky be in Alaska? Yes or no?
No.
Sean?
No.
I'll go with yes, just for kicks. Dan, what do you like? Do you think they're going to go in there with a Russian plan and a European plan? Will there be a Trump plan? Like, what's your sense of how the United States and the president will go into this meeting?
So that I was just about to say that the issue is, what is the Trump plan? And I think somewhat of the showman, he's not going to say anything until maybe like the day of there'll be a leak or something. But I mean, that's the $1 million question. The Europeans have made pretty clear, both leaking and privately, about how they see the Russian plan and what their counter proposal is, but nobody knows how the White House feels. And I go back to, how much does Trump want a deal? I think Putin's going to test that. I mean, because it sounds like what Putin offered by most independent accounts is a great deal for the Russians, where they basically give up nothing. And in fact, they get more than they've achieved even on the battlefield. So the question is, does Trump say, look, this has got to end. We're tired of financing this. And, Ukraine, we're going to sign on, cut off all the money, like everything. Or do they say to Putin, you got to make some sacrifice, and this is not good enough?
Sean, what do you think of what Dan said?
So look, I don't think anybody's going to know what Trump's thinking until after the meeting. He's going to listen. He always does, but I don't think he ever tips his hand on stuff like this. So here's what I think the Europeans are missing the boat on this one. And when they meet today, hopefully they're listening to the show. If I were the Europeans, I would follow up with Vice President Vance and say, we are willing to commit to the following in terms of troop presence, peacekeeping, whatever. But like, Putin is going to say absolutely no peacekeeping troops on the border of any of these contested regions. And they're definitely not going to be U.S. But if I were the Europeans, I'd say insist on it and we'll do it. We're not asking for the U.S. to do it, but we'll do it. The Europeans keep having meetings to tell us what to do. I find that very interesting. They need to step up to the plate and say what they will do and what they will commit to, and say to Trump, hey, listen, all you need to do is use us, and say that we will be here and we will do the following. But that's where I think this is going to go down, because I think Trump's going to walk in. I think Putin will insist on keeping the contested areas and will say absolutely no peacekeeping troops and no guarantees of no NATO membership.
So even
the
Lindsey,
Europeans need to be unequivocal right now and say, we insist on it, we'll pay for it, we'll do it, our boots on the ground.
even Lindsey Graham is now saying, of course, there needs to be land that Putin gets, and he gets rewarded for the invasion. Zelensky keeps saying, no, there'll be no land. Is it possible, Dan, that Zelensky will stick to that Zelensky will reject any deal that involves ceding land, including Crimea? Is that possible?
I suspect this may be a negotiating, which is
Well, sorry to interrupt. I've assumed that, and everyone's assumed that. But yeah, is it possible that it turns out it's not a negotiating position?
No, I think ultimately, if they have to give a little something, they probably know that they're going to give a little something. But if they do it now, Putin is not going to take the first deal countered to him. He's
Right.
going to try to drag this out and get the better deal. And so I think they're smart. You want to start over here? We'll start all the way over here, not in the middle, because then the end game is much closer to you. So I think it's smart.
Sean, there are two other factors that I'd like you to weigh in on. One is what the Europeans keep saying now, and some of the Ukrainians, is the president proved you can get Putin's attention with sanctions and threats and armaments, and they're saying do more. Is it possible that during these negotiations the president will do more, or do you think he's not going to follow that advice?
I think when he walks into the meeting, he's either got to do two, like to Dan's point, he's got to either come in with the posture that I have all the cards or you have some of them. And the question is, if he walks in and says, listen, Vladimir, you've pushed me too far. I'm going to, if we don't get a deal today that involves the following, I'm going to do the following, and that's it. If Trump walks in a real deal-making kind of mood and doesn't throw that there, then that's, I mean, again, it's just, to be honest with you, I feel like everything has to do with how he walks into that meeting. Emboldened, ready to go and saying to Putin, you either do this or you're screwed, or does he really want that deal? But the got to know, I mean, the one last thing I'll say is this. He's got to know. Vance has met with a ton of folks over this weekend. There'll be more communiques back and forth after today. That a deal that involves, HIJK in the list of alphabet soup that's going to get enumerated, that allows this or concedes that is not going to go over well, right? So if he walks out and says we have a deal, and the Europeans and Zelensky say no deal, we'll walk away potentially and he'll huff and puff, but at the end of the day, Putin will feel empowered, and that will not look like a victory. So he understands the flip side of this.
Totally agree. The one last thing I'll say, and then we're going to move on, is Putin's going to violate any ceasefire. I hope the Europeans and the president are thinking through their posture when Putin violates a ceasefire, if there is a ceasefire, because he will. And he'll blame it on, rogue generals, whatever. But there has to be thoughts given to that because it could upend the whole thing. They need a posture in advance for that. All right. I don't want to talk much about the president's announcement on DC because it's going to happen right when we go off the air, and we'll see what he says. So I just like one short thought from each of you of whether this is to what extent do you think this is a serious thing that the president will see through, and to what extent this is just some bullshit 72-hour on for law enforcement against a black run city political ploy. Dan,
you said it better than I could. The latter.
Sean, is this real?
It's absolutely real. This is stuff that's bothered him since the first term. The plight of homelessness throughout the city, the violence, the stories. I'll say two things. One, I caught a glimpse of a CNN show over the weekend. I think it was like Saturday morning, and Kara Swisher was on. It was like a panel, and it was just saying that this is a made-up issue. She lives in DC, and I'm thinking to myself, after the conversation that we have, where do you live in DC that you don't think that there's a problem with crime? But this is more than just crime. It's the graffiti. In terms of for President Trump, he wants this capital city to be beautiful and somewhere that people come and are very proud of, and that is safe. And that's clearly not the case on multiple fronts. So this is very real for him. It's something that had bothered him for quite some time. I will say this in the spirit of looking forward, and this is a pet peeve of mine, but this is the opportunity for Republicans. DC was created in 1789 as a perfect square, 10 by 10. It was supposed to be a federal district and no state, so that no state would have a stake in it. Part of it from Maryland, part of it from Virginia. In 1846, they gave back the Virginia piece, which is now Alexandria and Arlington. If DC, if the real solve to DC is give back everything but the National Mall from the White House to the Supreme Court, go around that, create a new federal district and give the rest back to Maryland. It solves the talking point from Democrats that DC doesn't have voting rights. It takes away that phony argument that they want DC to be a state. It's really about a ploy to get 2 senators. And so what I'm saying now is Republicans should seize this moment to give it back to Maryland, who should want it. That would give you another congressional seat, and it would give them more federal money and take the talking point away from Democrats. President Trump should seize this moment, make a new federal district that is confined to the National Mall, from the Lincoln Memorial to the Supreme Court, obviously cut in the White House, and give the rest back to Maryland.
Okay. Bibi, there's so much not known about what's going on with his plans in Gaza. It's true that he's being pressured to do this by the right-wing parts of his coalition. It's being true that there's opposition to it in Israel. It's being true that it's inflaming the international community. It's true we don't really know what the mission will be. What's also true is they killed a reporter, a number of reporters from Al Jazeera, and they claimed he was a member of Hamas, and Al Jazeera denies it. I can't believe this isn't a bigger story. It's gotten some coverage, but it seems like a huge story that the Israeli government killed a journalist who journalists claim was a journalist and not a Hamas leader. So I'd love for you guys to comment on that, but then also, where do you think this is headed in general? It seems like as long as Bibi keeps humanitarian relief off the front pages, the president's giving him a pretty carte blanche to do what he wants. But Sean, what do you think of the journalist thing, and what is this mission?
On the journalist thing, I mean, I've read. I don't mean to sound like I don't know the answer. The Reporters Without Borders denies that report that they were a member of, not just a member of Hamas, but a leader of Hamas,
yes,
which is a very significant charge. It's not like you were affiliated with Hamas. Yeah. That one Al something, she was directly tied to Hamas. I'm not in a spot to make judgment on that because it's a pretty serious charge. But anyway, I to your point, I think the bigger point is that there's no discussion of it. I mean, I think that's a pretty big deal. I think that your analysis, though, of where we are right now, I mean, Bibi looks pretty emboldened, and I think he's going to press forward. And we talk about this over and over again. It's almost like he's using the blind spot in the media as the ability to go in. He knows that he's not going to get that much coverage. And frankly, with all the attention going to be happening with Ukraine this week, it's almost like take advantage of it, go in there and knock the crap out of them. So I think from that standpoint, Bibi is looking at this strategically and saying, this is my moment to do what I've been saying I want to do.
Dan.
Yeah, I totally agree. Finish the job is the phrase you keep hearing. But I think this is just the start. I go back to then what? It's going to basically have been flattened, and you've got 1 million people who don't have a place to go anymore.
Well, this is where, regardless of what you think about Netanyahu, I do believe he is a very, very savvy political operator. And so saying what I just said, the question is, how can he do this without invoking massive outrage on how he does it? And that's where I think the line is going to be for him. If he is, and again, I'm just speaking strategically, I'm not trying to, but like if I were advising him, I'd say, this is your moment. The rest of the world's going to be paying attention to everything that's going on in Alaska this week. But if you jump the shark, if you go too far in this moment, you will turn the attention back to you and outrage will ensue. So he's got to be careful how he tries to pull this off.
But what is too far?
Too far is imagery of young kids in the streets dying. And I mean, so that's where, and Hamas is really good at exploiting this. So yeah. He's just got to, I'd be careful about how you do it, what you say you're doing, and how, I mean, like explaining a little bit more might be to your advantage.
If you want to rob a bank or eat a pack of Reese's Oreos, I recommend Friday. That would be the day I would do those things. All right. Industrial policy. The Trump administration is doing a bunch of stuff that if Barack Obama did it, I can only imagine what Republicans would say. 2 examples that are just bonkers. First, this would be 104. The CEO of Intel was born in Malaysia. He's run companies and dealt with China of Intel. So he's meeting with the president today, reportedly, to make his case. The president thinks he should be fired. He's standing firm, sent the company a note last week saying, let's all work this out. I predict the president will extort him today, but we'll see. Here's someone the president's already extorted. This is 110. NVIDIA and what's the other company? It's got 3 letters. AMR, what's it called?
AMD.
AMP. These two
AMD.
companies, AMD, thank you. These two companies are there's been this debate. Can they export to China AI chips? And so one school says, if we send them to China, the Chinese won't develop them themselves and they won't get ahead. And the other school says, China's going to beat us in AI if we don't really fight hard. And why should we be giving them advanced AI chips so they can break them down and steal them? It's a great debate, but this is a new wrinkle. Wall Street Journal is reporting these two companies are just handing 15%. It's like the equivalent of a specialized tax. Not really explained why. This is so antithetical to free market principles that Joe Kernan, who doesn't like to say negative things about Donald Trump, here's Joe Kernan this morning on Squawk Box in just agony, explaining what he thinks about this 15% extorted figure for our treasury.
Okay. I have thought of everything you could possibly say, and then you probably have some more concerns even than I've come up with.
I'll tell you my thoughts.
Well, you don't really. I mean, I've already thought about left versus right and who thinks. I mean, we need money, obviously, but if it was a security concern in the beginning, this doesn't change anything. If you get a little blackmail money to allow it to happen, obviously, why just chips? Are you going to do this with it? Why just AMD and NVIDIA? I mean, there's so many, and it's more industrial policy, which Republicans don't really like. And instead of just embracing that we're basically taxing a U.S. corporation and getting great revenue to try to reduce the deficit, suddenly even the left is going to have problems with this.
So here's where I stand.
The left and right are going to have problems.
Well, I would think the right should have a lot of problems.
Okay, that's enough. That's enough.
Industrial policy piece of this is now.
So just as Joe said about Andrew, I know exactly what you're going to say about this. I know exactly what Dan's going to say about it. So we'll get to Dan in a minute. Sean, you can't possibly think that this is proper. And you can't possibly say that if a Democrat did this, you'd say it was a good idea. Can you?
I don't know. Part of me is, first of all, on the first part, I am on this. I have listened to enough people talk that I think are really smart and knowledgeable about if we trade chips with China, why it makes better sense than letting them develop them on their own. That being said, I don't know. I got to be honest with you. I've gone back and forth on this. In some ways, I think it's genius. It's like, okay, we're paying down the debt. We're bringing in new revenue in a way that we've never thought of before. I get Joe's point on the where does it stop? Is it specific to chips? Should we do it to military sales? Should this be something that we do further? I don't know. I honestly went back and forth initially on this, but I think that I will give them credit for a new way of thinking when it comes to bringing in revenue.
Well, I'd give them credit. I'd give them credit for new thinking if they said, let's start robbing banks. Let's send FBI agents into banks and rob them. We've got a lot of firepower. Let's rob banks and give them money to the Treasury. I'd give them credit for that, but I'd consider it roughly
we have export licenses all over the place. And so I guess my question is if we can use those as an opportunity to make money. But I think, look, the one thing that's not being said on this, and here's the kicker on this, and this is the one part that the story and Joe Kernan, with all due respect, didn't come up with, is that part of what the president wants to do is force growth here in the United States of chips, rare earth minerals, etc. So he's literally trying to figure out how do we overall bring money back. And I know people might not like this, but the bottom line is all of this is being done out in the open. It's all very transparent. The president's being very clear what he wants to do, how he's going to do it, what he wants to force companies back here to do. I'm for secret backroom deals.
I'm for putting a press release out saying the FBI is robbing banks. I think we should be transparent. Dan, I'm not a big fan of the T-ball metaphor because it's very hard to hit a ball very far off T-ball because you don't have the velocity that comes from hitting a pitch. So I'm going to send you a medium overhand pitch with enough velocity on it that you can hit the thing like Ohtani distance. Please explain to the world why this is positively bonkers.
Batshit, you know what? It is unbelievable. The only thing missing from the press release, Sean, is that the Trump Children's SPAC, which, by the way, they just started, has another 5% stake in this because why not for the family to make a little more money off the deal? Awesome idea. Is absurd. I'll give you an example, Sean. Should News Corp want to license Premier League soccer because they own the rights to in out of Europe for soccer to broadcast in China? News Corp's in New York. What if the Pete Buttigieg administration said the U.S. government's going to take a 10% cut of that? Make it 30%.
Well, just to be clear,
Why-
there's a big
why-
difference
why
between
not? You
No,
are
no, no.
starting-
I want to hear the big difference Sean says
the
exists.
big difference
please.
is you can't. They had to get an export license to do
Any business in
Yes.
China requires U.S. clearance.
right,
Correct.
right. But what I'm saying is that there's a big difference between broadcasting something and sending them. ships,
no,
which-
there's not. No,
oh my
there's not.
God! One is a national security issue that
But Sean, there's no connection between the national security dimension of this and the government taking 15%. There's zero connection. Explain it.
can
No,
we
let me
know-
say, Sean, what's the connection between the fact? I agree with you that one's national security and one's not, but why does that entitle the president to demand 15%?
because because if they needed approval to do this.
They need
Because
approval
government-
to sell Premier League to China too.
I mean, everyone. I mean,
Hold
look,
on, hold on. Sean, is there a difference or not?
I think that the area is a difference. If you were selling weapons to Saudi, if you were selling weapons, to
Then
China,
you could the government could say we want 15% of that too.
I think yeah.
What's the principled reason why, if it involves national security, the government can tell a private company they want 15%?
Wait, hold on, because I want
go
to
ahead,
add to what you just said then on
Yeah.
arms.
Yeah, go
If
ahead.
the next Democratic president says we're taking 30% of arms sales to Israel,
Or 30% of arms sales to Turkey or to Saudi, what would you say, Sean? If you were a lobbyist for McDonnell Douglas and you said the White House is saying if we sell fighter jets to Saudi Arabia, the government's taking 15%.
oh,
of
and
the profit.
I'll take it a step
Well,
further.
if it's going to deficit reduction, I'm probably fine with it.
Okay, but how about this? The next Democratic president says national health care is going to be paid for by taxes on U.S. business that sells into China, Saudi Arabia, and India. And we'll call it the Donald Trump precedent. National health care will become Trump care.
Well, yeah, see, I like deficit reduction. I'm not.
Well, Sean, you don't know this money's going to deficit reduction. Anyway,
Right.
all right.
That's
all right,
probably going to
enough
the
of this.
family. Let's be
All
honest.
right, this is a quick one here, or two quick ones, and then one long one, and then your question. So please raise your hand. Will Loretta Lynch? I'm sorry, I keep saying Loretta Lynch. The craziest thing. Letitia James. Will Letitia James and Adam Schiff be indicted? Letitia James, Sean, yes or no?
Yes.
Dan.
I got the sense you know something I don't, so I'm going to say yes.
Okay. Will Adam Schiff be indicted?
No.
No, it's a sitting member.
Interesting. Okay. Maxwell.
Hold on.
Mark,
whoa!
Mark,
Hi,
Mark.
hi.
what say you?
They'll both
Yeah.
be. They're both going to be indicted.
Ooh.
Maxwell.
Well, wait, hold on. Just to be clear, on Schiff, it's on the housing stuff, right?
Yeah.
Okay, then I actually think that.
Well, just to be clear, they're both going to be set up for perjury traps as well. Just so
Right.
you know.
On the housing one, I do think he will. That is, he did lie on his application.
Oh, I'm not. Just to be clear, I'm not commenting on the merits of the case, either case.
And do,
yeah.
Will Mark, how will Capitol Hill feel about that?
Half of Capitol Hill will be super psyched.
So yeah, just for the record, so that the videotape shows it when we play the tape back, I am revising. I do think Schiff will go down on the mortgage application.
Okay. Do you expect Maxwell news in August? And if so, what, Dan?
Yes, I do. The week before Labor Day, maybe Thursday or Friday, something will happen. They can't have Congress come back in the current with the status quo. They need to give something to the gods on the Hill to try to get that amendment and more hearings pulled down. Don't ask me what it is.
Sean.
If there's anything I would want to be wrong on, it's this. But I do agree with Dan. There is going to be more to come. I think his timing is correct as well. And I hope to God I'm wrong.
Okay. If you talk to veterans of previous successful Democratic presidential campaigns, and by that I primarily mean Clinton people and Obama people, they will tell you something that is true. And it informs my view of the weakness of this Democratic field for 28, which is this is the major leagues, folks. You cannot freelance. You cannot say things. You cannot be like, say, you can't be a governor of a state who's done criminal redistricting. I say criminal in air quotes, and then criticize another state for its redistricting. It's just like you can't get away with stuff when you're running for president. Here is Pete Buttigieg, who is, by many measures, the most experienced, most press savvy, one of the smartest people thinking of running for president. Here's Pete Buttigieg in a relatively friendly interview with the podcast Bros, talking about part of what he said, talking about Israel.
Do you think it's time to recognize a Palestinian state?
I think that's a profound question that arouses a lot of the biggest problems that have happened with Israel's survival, Israel's right to survival in the diplomatic scene. And many of the people who have taken that step historically have done so for different reasons than what we see happening with European countries. I think we need to step back and we need to do whatever it takes to ensure that there is a real two-state solution and that no one, not even the likes of Netanyahu, can veto the international community's commitment to a two-state solution where you have Palestinians and Israelis living with safety, with security, with rights. I believe that can happen, but we have to actually show some commitment to it.
That was part of an answer which I can summarize as humana, humana, humana. Again, raise your hand if you want to end the conversation. Here's what one of those Obama veterans tweeted about that answer, the overall answer, not just that part. This is Ben Rhodes, who was Deputy National Security Advisor for President Obama. Pete is a smart guy, and I admire a lot of what he's done, but I have absolutely no idea what he thinks based on these answers. Just tell us what you believe. Again, this is part of a broader thing. Go look at, for instance, Senator, what's the senator from Arizona's name?
Mark Kelly?
Oh, Ruben Gallego.
Ruben Gallego. Go look at Ruben Gallego's relatively well-covered trip to Iowa and look at his answers. Look at even Gavin Newsom's answers. These guys are and gals are so far from the standards you need, and the press is not holding them accountable for these flabby answers. But we are here. Dan, do you agree with Ben Rhodes specifically about Pete Buttigieg and that appearance? But do you agree with the more general point that I hear from Obama and Clinton people that these folks just don't understand? They think they're hitting double A pitching, and they think they're in the major leagues.
Yes, no, I agree, and I think we didn't play the rest of the clip of Buttigieg, but there were several questions that he got on, I'll call them controversial foreign policy topics, where he tap danced around them. He did not give direct answers, and so I think by the time you got to that question, that is where the most obvious of his tap dancing. I think look, on the one hand, Donald Trump does tap dance on some question. He calls it the weave or like whatever, but on 9 out of 10 occasions, Trump is just like, full throttle, just here's exactly where I stand. There's no ambiguity. And I think that's where, for Buttigieg in that interview, he just on question after question would not kind of be straight. And I think part of the problem is it's an understanding of the modern environment. If you want to go on all these podcasts, if you do this, there is an audience of commentators waiting to pick you apart online and everywhere else. 30 years ago, there wasn't. You read about it in the newspaper. It might get a little play on kind of a nascent CNN that was just emerging. But now, like, you can't go out. And I think what they're doing is they're getting their feet wet. It's like taking swings in the batting cage. But now it's all your permanent record. People are forming their initial opinions now as they start to do this. And so I do agree with you, Mark. Nobody so far has stepped forward to me and said, I've done all my spade work behind the scenes. I've prepped these answers. I know how I want to do this. And I'm road testing the finished product, so to speak. It'll evolve as the world changes. But it's almost like they don't understand that this is all in real time. And they're just being, ground down a little.
And they think it's early, and it's really not. Sean,
right. Agree.
Sean, do you see anybody in the Democratic field who actually understands, like, now's the time to be saying what you plan to say when you run, rather than shopping things and dodging and weaving the hard questions?
No, but I have to wonder, we haven't heard much from a guy like Wes Moore. Is he sitting back kind of going, I'm getting ready, or I don't want, but I agree with what Dan said. I mean, the idea that Buttigieg, I feel like he was winging it. And we've seen this a little with Rahm Emanuel too, where they show up and they're like, okay, guys, let's talk. I mean, I don't do a random, the easiest hit in the world without saying, hey, what are the topics? Do you have anything you want to share? Right. And I feel like these guys were just getting on the Zoom and being like, hey, let's go. That word salad was an insult to word salads. I felt like Kamala Harris was watching that and going, how come he gets away with it? it really was a compilation of nothingness. And if I were another candidate, to your point, I'd look at that and say, that's the guy that you guys think, he's at zero with blacks and he can't put together a decent, soundbite on Gaza. He's getting whacked by, the Pod State guy. I'm the lieutenant governor of Nebraska. I'm going to run. I mean, like, somebody's got to be thinking to themselves, I can do better.
Yeah.
I think Josh Shapiro and Gretchen Whitmer, who just continue to govern, they're staying out of this stuff. And now it's starting to look smart.
Shapiro has the same problem.
No, I did, but
It's
there's
the same
less
problem.
footage now.
They can answer. They can answer the easy questions, but when
Yep.
you run for president, guess what?
Yep.
But it's also the case, and I'll paint with a broad brush here. They're not being asked by reporters who are rigorous and serious. It's not an interview with like David Broder or Karen Elliott House, or somebody's going to ask them like really tough questions. These are like they're facing nothingness, and they still.
But the thing is, it's not even just that they're facing nothingness. It's like being asked, "What would you like for lunch today?" These are the obvious questions.
Yes, correct.
So the idea that you're not prepared, it wasn't like that was a gotcha. And it was like, can you explain how you're going to handle, the refinancing of the debt when it comes to this obscure entitlement program? It's like, dude, this is literally in the news today, every day, and you haven't prepared a concise answer on the most obvious things that the Democratic Party wants to talk about.
Well, and that's like Kamala Harris on The
Correct.
View, right? They don't have game plans going in. It's almost like their game plans. We used to talk about this with Harris. Don't make a mistake. No news is victory.
Totally agree.
And that instead of like Bill Clinton and Barack Obama would say, what is the headline that I want to drive out of this? And let me drive towards it.
Totally agree. I'll tell you this. Well, one last thing on Israel and Gaza and Palestine. This is an incredibly tough issue right now. It's tougher than it's ever been if you're a Democrat, because all of the energy in the party is on the left, all of it. And so if you don't pander entirely to that position, you'll be destroyed. And you have to have the courage to say, I'm going to stand up to that wing of the party, even though that's where the whole energy is. Not just where the loudest and angriest people are, but it's the direction the party it continues to head.
Mark, would you also say, though, this is going to be a tricky issue for J.D. Vance right now?
No.
So you don't think the energy in MAGA is to not get involved?
Some of the energy is, no question, and there's no question that there's a parallel, but there's still a very large percentage of the party that is pro-Israel and pro-Netanyahu and anti-Hamas. So it's more divided. I'm not saying it's effortless.
Yeah, because my
effortless for him.
I wouldn't say it's even in the top 15 issue though.
Yeah.
Like, even if you're not on the right side, like somebody who called me, and if that was a big problem for a candidate, and they said
not an average candidate, but you think if JD Vance gets up there, he's going to unequivocally, because my sense is there is a lot of energy in the core of to not get involved in this.
There is,
and so I think he'll have to be careful too.
It'll depend on facts on the ground by then. But but
not like us.
But it's not a problem now. But also when he does interviews with base media, they're not for the main. They're not going to press him on. All right, Matt, welcome in. Tell folks who don't know where you.
Can I make one more quick point? Because
of course,
I just the hypocrisy over the weekend on redistricting was mind blowing. I mean, literally, as I said before, you have Texas Democrats running to political sanctuary cities in states that have led the way in gerrymandering. And all weekend, all they could say was democracy's under attack. Yeah, I might have started the attack on democracy, but it's totally different now. It was mind blowing how ridiculous Democrats sounded this weekend.
Totally ridiculous. Totally ridiculous. All right, Matt, welcome in. Tell folks who don't know where you are, what's on your mind. For Dan and John, thank you for being part of the two-way community.
Good morning, guys. Calling in from the San Francisco Bay Area today. Dan, in the spirit of peace, love, and understanding, I'm not going to say anything about the Mets.
Oh, man, like a stone in a pond. They're falling.
I like our 5.5 game lead that'll hopefully be 6 by the end of tonight. Anyway, quick question for you guys on India. Seems to be the toughest test yet of the policy to use tariffs to try to drive foreign policy. Do you think either side has leverage here right now? And if there's progress on Ukraine and Alaska this week, does that kind of help or hurt the U.S. position as we're negotiating with India?
Done.
I don't think India I mean, like, as I said before, I think India is about India, right? They've never, like, they always will shop the best deal. So I don't think that they're really I mean, to them, they don't have a problem pinging over and going, okay, we'll buy from you today and then we'll buy from them tomorrow. Like, I don't think India's ever been like really, they're worried about India. They're worried about protecting jobs and their I mean, so I don't know that India really cares that much, but I probably, you know, somebody who has more sense on exactly on like a Modi. I mean, I think Modi wants to be friends with everybody, but I also think at the end of the day, he'll do whatever it takes to look out for the Indian people.
Yeah, and I agree. Look, I think ultimately India actually has some leverage because we need them to go against China. We can't have the most populous country who happens to be on the border of China align with China. That's a huge problem for us. So Trump is going to have to figure out a way to save face, but keep them in our sphere against China. And by the way, I think they want to be with us versus China, but they'll go with the Chinese if they need to.
Yeah, I mean, exactly.
Matt, thank you. Jackie, welcome in.
Matt, if you want, by the way, you're more than welcome to jump on the Red Sox wagon. I would welcome you.
He used to camp outside of Fenway for playoff tickets on a couch.
in the midst of a 2-game losing streak.
Okay, and still 7-3 in the last 10.
Correct. Jackie, welcome in. Thank you for joining. Please tell folks where you are. What's on your mind?
Good morning, everyone. I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Go Steelers. I have 3 questions, one for each of you, but feel free to intermix your answers. Sean, first one for you. Did not the redistricting thing, which I know everybody's tired of talking about, but I'm from PA and we had our own little redistricting issue several years ago when our legislature drew up the maps. The governor sued, the legislature lost, then the Supreme Court drew up the map. So, you know, there is that. But I watched your interview with Harmeet last week, which was fabulous. I recommend anybody to watch that. Did not the whole redistricting thing happen because the DOJ stepped in and said there were civil rights being? Isn't that how it all started? It wasn't Trump.
Right.
Well, it wasn't directly Trump.
Right.
It wasn't the governor. It was, hey, people's civil rights are being violated. Redistrict.
Yep. Go ahead, Sean.
I will say, and by the way, keep an eye on the Supreme Court because the Voting Rights Act, there was, I believe it was Section 5, had got kind of addressed by the court a couple terms ago. I think there's going to be more.
They're going to strike it down.
Yeah, you know, when you look at what this means, and the left is going to go apoplectic when this happens. But to your point, you know, this is a political exercise. Every side has done this, going all the way back to the founding of our country. And I think that this idea that somehow now, and like I was blown away at the lack of pushback on Democrats this weekend, who literally said it's different because now it's Texas. Like when Illinois did it under JB, and again, both sides do it. I get it. This is, I regardless of whether you like it or not, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, it is part of our political way of life. And this idea that somehow it's now a threat to democracy. Yeah, I mean, Maura Healey, by the way, the governor of Massachusetts, said that she was going to do the same thing in Massachusetts, which is 8-0. There are no Republicans represented in Massachusetts, and she is going to do more. And I'm like, I don't really know how you squeeze more out of 8-0. But anyway, but I would keep your eye on the court going forward, because once that happens, Republicans will continue to redistrict, and these majority-minority districts in places like Louisiana are going to be fair game.
Jackie.
Dan, the census. Do you think, or does your party think, well, I know what the party thinks, but you yourself, like, take Democrat, Republican, because you're like the most normal Democrat I've ever met. So do you think that illegal immigrants should be counted in the census. And by the way, I used to be a census worker. I did it for a couple of cycles. People don't answer the door. I mean, it's fraught with error. I'm just saying, because you have to rely on people opening the door, giving you correct answers. And if I'm an illegal, I'm not opening the door. Like, so I'm not really sure. But anyways, I was just curious, you personally, do you think that illegals should be counted in the census? And it was my understanding that there was a mistake in the last census where California got to keep some seats they probably shouldn't have. They should have gone to what, Arizona, Texas, Florida, something like that. And it actually never happened.
I'm not sure about your latter part. I do think in the next census, New York, Illinois, California, I think it's Minnesota, Massachusetts, there's going to be a net loss of about 10 seats out of the blue areas. It's going to go down likely into Texas, Florida, Georgia, Arizona. But I don't know about in the past. Look, I think the thing about illegal immigrants is the reason that they are counted is it is money that is the part of the formula that they use to allot money for social services. So if you want to not count them, okay. The question then is, Florida, how are you paying for, like, are you going to say they get no medical care, no access to public education, no nothing? If you do, okay, so now you're going to cut off, however many hundreds of thousands of people. Then if that's what the country wants to do, okay, like that's a public policy decision. But it's not, they're not counted for apportionment purposes. They're counted because there's a lot of federal spending that goes into this. And I keep saying this, Texas, Georgia, Florida, Arizona, Republican states with a lot of illegal immigrants. So, to me, it's like, if you don't want to count them, I get it. But then there's a real question of what do you do with them, with all these people?
I think the bigger, broader point, though, is will Trump, the courts will obviously take this up if he moves forward with this. If you look at our history, right now, if you're a diplomat in this country, so you're a body, you don't count in our census. If you are a tourist, you don't count in our census. So why would you count someone in the country illegally? And I get you. I mean, there's a policy implication, Dan, to your point, but the bottom line is, why would we count people if we don't count tourists, we don't count diplomats and other, groups of people? Why would we then count people who are illegally in the country?
So, Sean, what do you do with the kids that are here?
No, you're asking a policy question. My point is,
you don't count them, there's no money.
Okay. And the reason that they're coming is because there's money.
Yes.
Creating Sean, the incentive.
What do you do with, I think it's like the 700,000 children in Texas?
I think that's
they're not going to school, they're on the streets. There's a problem in DC. Right?
But part of the point is that you're creating a magnet, and this is the biggest issue that Biden had. And you say they all came because we had an open border and we promised them free stuff. And now what are we going to do with them? Well, you guys brought them here. So now we need to say goodbye. The gravy train has come to an end. But you can't keep saying, well, we allowed the border to be wide open. We promised them a ton of stuff. They came. And now, gosh, what do we do? The problem wasn't ours. We didn't create this problem.
Well, hold on. The 20 million didn't come in 4 years. The 20 million came in the last 30.
I'm at least happy to hear you agree to 20 million.
So,
all right,
and
Jackie,
then
last question. Quickly.
Mark, loser of the week, the month, the year continues to be the media. The Arab League thing, condemning Hamas, I barely saw it covered. The peace deal with Abrogation, whatever, with those countries last week, the Sudan or Congo, you barely hear any of that on the news. The Biden cover up, Russiagate, nothing. The media is silent. They haven't learned anything. I don't get it. I mean, Mark, what is going on with your friends in the media? You need to shake them up and say, you guys got to start covering some of these. We deserve the facts. Yeah. Good or bad. I could care less if they go against Trump or for Trump or the Republicans or whatever. I would like to hear just facts.
Not every story that you cited is not covered because of bias against Trump. Some of it is because the press isn't interested in serious things, or it's August or whatever. And obviously, in the age in which we live, you know about these stories. So the fact that they're not dominating in the dominant media is not as big a problem as it used to be. In terms of bias against Republicans, it is what it is. I do know that some of the legacy places are paying attention to what we say here, and their business models being in crisis, and saying maybe we need a business model that appeals to 100%, potentially 100% of the audience rather than 40%. So maybe it'll change, but I can't dispute your basic premise, of course.
Oh, and my one last point is, Congress, I have never been so infuriated with our Congress people for taking the entire month of August off than I am this cycle.
I agree with you on that. It's
no
ridiculous.
wonder they talk about the Democrats' polls, congressional polls being in the dumps. Republicans have to be down there too, because I'm done with all of them. They're ridiculous. Not to take up these hard issues. That's what we voted them in for. If they didn't want to deal with the hard issues, they should never have run.
Jackie,
simple as that.
Thank you. News breaking right now. Associated Press says that the other federal judge assigned the question of the administration's request to unseal the Maxwell grand jury transcripts has denied the request. So we've now had judges in Florida and New York deny that. Maybe perhaps there'll be appeals, but this will probably not be done before.
So just to be clear, there was a request to unseal her meeting with Todd Blanchard. Or is this separate?
No, this is the grand jury testimony.
Grand jury. Okay.
As it turns out, much to the surprise of many, there's a good op-ed piece in the Wall Street Journal about this today. The only people who testified before the grand jury were 2 law enforcement officials. No victims testified. It was simply law enforcement officials. And Dan, can a grand jury indict a ham sandwich?
Yes, I don't know, but I will say one of the things that is getting, speaking of the media not getting a lot of coverage, is the list that the House Republicans put out of people they subpoenaed. They did not put in there, what is it, Alex Azar, the former U.S. attorney that cut the deal with the shocking deal with Epstein. He was not included, and I wonder why.
All right, Haley and Professor Kenny, welcome in. Thank you both for joining. What's on your minds?
Haley, go ahead, Haley.
Well, first of all, we just wanted to touch base about our picnic on Saturday that we had.
We've got a great photo of the picnic that we'll put up right now while you tell us about it.
We had a pretty good turnout, I think, about 15 people. It was a mix of the two-way audience, and it was also a couple people who watched the YouTube. So it was a nice little gathering of everybody. You can see a few of our fan favorites there. It was gorgeous day. It was super fun, and we really enjoyed meeting each other, and it was just like really an awesome day. And
what percentage of your conversation was about Dan?
I want to say maybe like 20%.
Yeah,
but I said, for punishment, I know Dan's a Met fan, so I think I'm going to send him a Yankees hat and make him wear it on one of the shows as a punishment for him.
Yes, and I am sorry, everyone, I could not make it. I did not realize that public transportation back to Eastern Long Island on Saturday in the afternoon is basically non-existent. It is not until nighttime, and so I was going to incur the wrath of my family. I was not going to be able to get back till almost 9:30 Saturday night.
No, so. we totally understand. Yes. It was the busiest day in New York City, I think, in Central Park. So I get it.
Well, we're sorry we missed it, but we're delighted to
is that JD Vance?
Have you all assemble, and we love the photo. So thank you.
Yes, it was a wonderful. It was definitely a wonderful get together on Saturday. If you see my background,
I like it.
That's a picture of me and Chris Simmons. Jackie and I went on our way down to Florida yesterday after the picnic. We stopped in Charlotte, North Carolina, to have brunch with Chris Simmons, my good friend. That we are in opposite sides of the political spectrum, but it just shows you how the two-way is a very uniting platform. I've said that to you 100 times, Mark. I love the two-way. And look, me and Chris, we used to go at it very hard in the chat, and now we're We're respectfully friends, even though we disagree on many things. And it's just wonderful. I just spent a month meeting so many people from the two-way going cross country. I'm writing a book called I Met Them on the Two-Way. So hopefully that'll be out in the spring. So anyway, it was great. And we thank you, Mark, Sean, and Dan, for kind of bringing us together. It's important that as Americans, even though we have different opinions, and of course this platform's dominated by the right now, but we embrace our friends regardless of our political beliefs, and it's just wonderful because everybody's a good person. So
We couldn't have done it
not love
without you
Chris
guys.
with that sport coat on back there.
Yeah,
That is
Chris. And
fantastic.
what was funny was it was cold in the restaurant. So Jackie went out to the car to get something. As Chris was walking in, I was texting him saying, Chris, if you got a jacket, bring a jacket. But he already comes. He always dresses nice, Chris. So he was already prepared.
All right. Well, thank you both. I'll just say three quick things. First of all, we'll be doing more in real life events coming up. So stay tuned for that. Number two, I would not say this platform is dominated by the right. I would say it's dominated by common sense. And our friends on the left just need to have a little more willingness to raise their hands and speak up. And then lastly, again, sorry we missed the event, but it looked like it was great fun, and we're grateful.
Thank you guys for everything
for not just being part of two-way, but you two and Chris being leaders in the community to hear from the beginning and so representative of the ethos that's
Yes.
the basis of this program.
Just have to say also, Deborah Knox was one of our
Deborah really
collaborators. She was amazing.
We'll add Deborah Knox, and Deborah, welcome in. How was the picnic, Deborah?
Oh, it was great. And frankly, I got more ideas for things that we might create as a community ourselves, like a job board, the project, like the farm, like maybe there's projects in the community that people could invest in. So I don't know if we can figure out a platform for that, but I feel like there's all these possibilities that could happen amongst ourselves. So we had to discuss amongst ourselves. We're going to discuss that, but no, it was great, and we had the perfect weather. I was so worried it was going to rain. Where are we going to go? And it was just
is unpredictable in New York.
Never rains on two-way, Deborah. Thanks all three of you. Very grateful to you. Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Appreciate it.
Mark, that's a T-shirt. It never rains on two-way.
Okay, I'll add it to the list. Sean, what do you have tonight?
Alex Marlowe, editor-in-chief of Breitbart, joins us tonight to talk about Russia hoax, the DOJ stuff, some of the things that we talked about, the lawfare, prosecutions, etc. So he's got a new book out. We'll break it all down.
All right. Later, Megan's off this week. She's on what they call an Arizona holiday. So no Megan at noon. 6 o'clock tonight on two-way tonight. Dan, California has the 5th biggest economy in the world, right?
I believe that's correct.
And how many Americans lives in California? I think it's 1 in 7.
Okay, I'm close.
So California is a big deal. Tonight, a group that we hope to be assembling on a regular basis. Rob Stutzman, a Republican strategist, Karen Skelton, a Democratic strategist, both know a lot about national politics.
That's awesome.
But they also are California experts. And then to add to that, George Skelton, Karen's dad, has been a columnist in California, mostly for the LA Times for, 40 years, 50 years. He's really one of the longest running premier political writers in America. And all three of them will join me on two-way tonight this evening. We'll talk about California. There's lots of issues, obviously immigration, post fires, who's going to run for governor, but we'll also just talk national politics and news of the day with them. So Karen Skelton, George Skelton, Rob Stutzman all joined me on two-way tonight this evening. I had one other thing I wanted to say. Oh, yeah. Reminder, if you'd like to sponsor this or any other program, there's a way for you to do that. We will work with you to give you a bespoke ability to communicate with our great community. Sponsors at twoway.tv. Send us an email and we'll tell you all about how you can become a sponsor of this program or other programs on the platform. Gentlemen, are you going to make time at 10 o'clock to watch the president's press conference?
I've blocked out the entire hour.
Yeah, I've got a meeting, so I have to multitask. But let me ask you this.
I'm going to give you a little. I will bet you the over/under. I think this will start at 10:23.
Okay, let me ask you this. They say it's a press conference. Will he take questions?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Give me a ping back and forth 3 topics each, one by one. What are topics that will be asked about besides this, Dan?
The Ukraine meeting on Friday.
Yeah. Okay, that's one. Sean.
Epstein.
No,
Oh, sorry.
one at a time.
Oh,
Sean.
sorry.
Dan says Russia.
I feel like it's cheap, but I could take Epstein. I'm going to go redistricting because.
Okay, redistricting. Dan.
Gaza.
Sean.
The new candidates to lead the statistician role at the Bureau of Labor Statistics.
Ooh.
Dan. One more.
Is there going to be a second reconciliation bill? Like what does he want?
Yeah, that will never come up, but thank you for adding it.
All right, let's do a real quick twist. What's the dumbest question?
Yep.
I don't know. I always think that the other one is what's the one that's gonna like come out of left field?
Pop culture. Is there a
out of left field? I don't know. What was in the news this weekend? Maybe female umpires. What do you feel about female umpires?
Oh, that's a good one.
The Redskins, because he's still pushing for that. NFL season's about to start. Yep.
Yeah. All right. I'll see you at 6. Sean will see you at 6, and all three of us will see you at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Thank you, everybody, for being part of the two-way community, and we'll see you in 23 hours.